Shalom, brothers and sisters. Taking my first break of the day, so I figured I'd go ahead and finish the study up on speaking about war. We've went through Matthew, we've went through Gog and Magog, we've talked about the different scriptures out of Revelation. So now I want to bring you a few other scriptures along with a little bit of a small study on Daniel chapter 11. First, we'll start with Luke 14:31, King James Version, family. Or what king going to make war against another king sitteth not down first, and consulteth whether he be able with 10,000 to meet him that cometh against him with 20,000? Jeremiah 46:15. Why are your mighty ones face down? They do not stand because the Lord thrusts them down. Psalm 76:3. There he broke the flashing arrows, the shield, the sword, and the weapons of war. Okay, family, in the book of Daniel, chapter 11, starting in chapter 11, I'm going to read, you can read the full chapter for the full context, but I want to read starting at verse 25 through 29. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they feed on the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both of these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief. I'm going to read that part again. And both of these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as former or as the latter. And further down in chapter 11, Daniel, in verse 36 through 45, I'm going to read this to you. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women. So this person is not going to care about his father's history, ancestor, the God. He's not going to desire to have a woman, nor regard any other god, for he shall magnify himself above all. Now, who do we think Daniel's speaking of in chapter 11? I'm going to continue on in verse 38. But in his estate shall be honored the God of forces, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and precious stones and pleasant things. Thou shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. At the end of the time, the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots and horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into a glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. But the tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with a great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many. He shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. The following are some outstanding features of the last days or end time prophecies. There's going to be a war on a large scale, famine, great earthquakes, pestilence, epidemics of terrible diseases, increase of crime, ruining of earth by mankind. Like people's attitudes will be shown to be unthankful, disloyal, not open to any agreement, slanderers, without self-control, fierce, without love of goodness, betrayers, headstrong, puffed up with pride. The breakdown of the family, with people who have no natural affection and children are disobedient to their parents. The love of God growing cold in most people, noteworthy displays of religion hypocrisy, increased understanding of biblical prophecies, including related in the last days, global preaching of the good news of the kingdom, widespread apathy and even ridicule towards the evidence of the approaching end. We're already seeing that already from people. The fulfillment of all these prophecies, not just a few or even most of them, will happen during the latter times, and we're already seeing a lot of this come to pass already, family. So are we living in the last days? I've been saying yes this whole entire time. I believe truly we are. The world continues as well as the Bible indicates the last days began. At that time, God's kingdom began ruling in heaven, and one of its first actions was to expel Satan, the devil, and the demons from heaven and restrict their activity to earth. Satan's influence on mankind can be seen in many of the bad attitudes and actions that make the last days critical times hard to deal with. Daniel the prophet warns us of the terrible end time events that will affect the entire world, but he also provides a wonderful hope for those who submit to God, family. As these prophesied events begin to unfold, God's people need to remember that Daniel was also told, at that time, the time of the end, your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. And that's in Daniel 12:1. Jesus also spoke of a mysterious abomination of desolation as the end time sign before his second coming. So what is the abomination of desolation in the Bible? It's a prophetic event found in the book of Daniel 12:11 and referred to by Jesus Christ in Matthew 24:15. You can cross-reference that. Though it has historical fulfillments, there is also a future fulfillment when daily sacrifices will be offered in Jerusalem and then cut off and replaced by some sort of blasphemous display. The prophecy is significant because it represents an important time marker signaling the nearness of the return of Jesus Christ. He said, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, Matthew 24:15. So after Jesus mentions this, he warned that God's people will have to flee. That's in Matthew 24:16-20, because shortly after the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be a great tribulation. Why is the abomination of desolation such an important prophetic marker for us to watch? Because it signifies the great tribulation. An unprecedented 3.5-year period of global war and suffering is about to begin, basically. When the abomination of desolation is set up, faithful Christians who are watching and strong in God's Spirit will understand what has happened and will know that the time has come to flee. Through the Bible, we know God's people, some will be martyred and others will be protected. Either way, don't give in and don't be afraid. You can read more about that in Revelation chapter 12:11-17. So yes, some of us will be martyred and others will be protected. But just look towards Christ. Look towards the Son. And whatever you face, do not fear. Because there's a lot more to come, family. I'm trying to help you guys and help myself as well get prepared for it,